Change.
Everybody please rise, face our flag, and while we're doing this, think about our veterans and those serving in the armed services. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The pastor here? Okay. Anybody in the hallway, Chris? One of the Pastor Jamesons, could you come up and lead us in prayer unless you see her walking in? Thank you.
Love Angie. She is my daughter worked with her for a while with children. Let's pray.
Angie, they're ready for you right now.
Did she come in? Okay. Thank you, Pastor.
Let's bow before the Lord. Father God, we thank you. We thank you for this meeting tonight. We invite your presence in here, these chambers, and we ask you to be present with us as we come together in a spirit of unity, love, and compassion, not only for our own community, but for the communities that are surrounding us. We ask you, Father, that as we join tonight, that we take just a few moments of silence to just ask you to touch the families and the situations in Las Vegas, that you come before them, touch families, bring about understanding where we have no understanding. And we ask you, Father God, that your presence be across our nation at this time. And these things we ask in our Savior's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. We have a roll call of council members, please.
Councilmember Hanson.
Here.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
Here.
Councilmember Guillen. Vice Mayor Martinez.
Here.
Mayor Lemons.
Here. We have public comment cards, Joe?
Yes, ma'am, we do. Our first one is from Mr. Reno Radula of Georgia Avenue. Mr. Radula?
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I come before you to appeal to us and to remind you that our planet Earth is in need of help. Its global temperature is rising, and it is because our polar ice caps from Arctic near Alaska down to Antarctic near New Zealand, and the biggest deposits of glaciers in Greenland are melting so fast. As a result, oceans or global sea levels are rising, as well as endangering those countries or islands which are low-lying. The reason all of this are deforestation, the senseless cutting down of the trees. It is simply a common sense that during photosynthesis, by combining water vapor, carbon dioxide, and ultraviolet light from the sun, the tree creates carbohydrates that all living things eat. It also releases oxygen that we animals and human beings breathe. And trees also store water from rain that also evaporates through recycling process by way of evaporation, condensation on the lower atmosphere, then precipitation or rain for humanity to drink. Rain can only occur when there is forest. Few years ago, in Downey and Rosecrans across High School, and Paramount and Somerset in front of Sheriff Department, huge trees were cut down by city workers. It really broke my heart upon seeing them lying on the side street. Those were part of our interconnecting life. Trees absorb carbon dioxide from fossil-based materials in cars and factories. So as leaders of this city, please start cutting down trees and start tree planting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Our next speaker's card is actually from Mr. Gene Daniels. He wants to discuss on item number 7. Mr. Daniels, we'll call you up at that time when item number 7 does come up. Our next speaker's card is from Mr. Alan Gomez of Jefferson Street, and he wants to discuss SB 415. Mr. Gomez?
Good evening, council members. Alan Gomez. I've been a resident in the city of Paramount for over 18 years. I'm a graduate of Paramount High School, a graduate of University of Southern California, and received my graduate degree from California State University, Northridge. My message to you and the Paramount City Administration is simple. After reading SB 415, let Paramount vote in 2018. For too many years in cities such as Paramount, standalone municipal elections are conducted in the months of March and June, resulting in very low voter turnout. Recently, on Wednesday, September 20th, in downtown Los Angeles, thousands of people from more than 100 countries were sworn in as U.S. citizens. And the first step many make after that is to register to vote, a right many of them did not have in their home countries. My father, an immigrant to this country, proudly wears his I voted sticker on election day. Makes me laugh because he's telling me, "Did you go vote?" I said, "Yeah, I'm on my way." Something is very wrong with our current election process here in Paramount. As our elected leaders, you have the power to change it. As you know, and for all Paramount residents here in City Council chambers who don't know, Governor Jerry Brown signed Senate Bill 415 into law on September 1st, 2015, a state requirement, a law that government bodies with low voter turnout of less than 25% of their local total population in recent elections must consolidate with state and federal elections. The purpose and the spirit of the law is to increase voter participation in cities with standalone elections by consolidating with the state and federal elections in November of even number of years, 2, 4, 6, 8, right? We are now at a crossroads here in Paramount, and standalone elections must be thought of and maybe changed and now. In the March, for example, in the March 3rd, 2015 municipal election, current council members Hoffmeyer, Martinez, and Hansen were re-elected unchallenged with a voter turnout of 4% of 20,000 voters. In the recent March 7th, 2017 election, voter turnout was only 10% of 22,000 voters. Compare this to the presidential election on November 8th, 2016, the voter turnout was 62%. That was because it was a presidential year, it wasn't on an off cycle. You can clearly see why rescheduling our city's election to November 2018 matters. The Paramount Unified School District has recently rescheduled their election to November 6, 2018 to comply with SB 415. As of September 21st of this year, within a 12-mile radius of our city, wonderful city, 17 municipal elections have been rescheduled to November 6, 2018, including the nearby cities of Artesia, Bell Gardens, Bellflower, Downey, Linwood, Maywood, Pico Rivera, and Montebello. Council members, with all due respect, it's time to move our elections to November 6, 2018 and let our great citizens vote. Not doing so will send the wrong message to voters and the community that our city council and administration do not encourage increased voter participation and would rather implement many steps of 415 to extend council terms to 2020, because that's in the law as well. That's an option, which I don't think is right. Why discourage residents from voting? Increasing voter participation is a good thing, so in my opinion, we should let Paramount vote in November 6, 2018. Yeah, for many years, our elections have been held like in March of odd years. And when I go to the polling places, it's empty. I mean, we're wasting registered recorder staff, you know, state, county money, city money, and it's very depressing. So I think we should consolidate our elections to the 2018 year to increase voter participation. People are going to the polls anyways, so why not let them vote? So that's all my comments for tonight on that. I just wanted to bring in and inform you guys about the law.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Anyone else?
Yes, the next speaker's card is from Miss Eileen Aparicio of Weimar Avenue. Ms. Aparicio.
Hi. Eileen Aparicio on Weimar Avenue, right. Okay. So I just, first of all, say to the audience, thank you all for coming. It's so awesome to see so many people here. And to you on the dais, just thank you very much for being so open and accommodating to the citizens of our community. I think we will have greater interest and participation, and I appreciate all that you do to facilitate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
The last speaker's card we received was from Ms. Holly Enriquez regarding item number 7. So Ms. Enriquez will call you up at that time when that item's here.
That's it?
That's it, yes.
Okay. We'll move to the consent calendar.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Been moved by Martinez and seconded by Hoffmeyer to approve the consent calendar. And I'm going to remove item from the register of demands on item 2, item 304456. That item's made payable to my employer, therefore I'm disqualified from voting on it.
Make motion to approve the 2 items.
Second.
Let's have a roll call first on the item, then we'll go for the other 2.
Councilmember Hanson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen, Vice Mayor Martinez.
Yes.
Mayor Lemmons.
Yes. And now you can make the
Okay,
second
make a
motion.
motion to approve the item.
Second.
Moved by Hoffmeyer, seconded by Hanson. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hanson.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen, Vice Mayor Martinez.
Yes.
Okay, and now we'll move to old business, and we'll have, now, I know that we're in the middle of this, and I know we have a couple speakers cards, so at what point should we do the speakers?
Okay, John, it's your item.
No, Madam Mayor, you can, if you like, it's up to you as a presiding officer, if you would like to hear the speakers at this point. We do have 2 remaining issues that we want to go through
Okay.
to finish up. And we've been going through as a consensus of some of those. But if you'd like to have some of the speakers' input first before we get to the remaining one, you certainly can do that.
Okay. I think that that would be wise, so why don't we do that?
We had 2 speaker cards from the last meeting that we did not get to. The first one was from Ms. Lisa Lappin. Is she in the audience? Ms. Lappin is not in the audience. Okay. So our next one from the last meeting was Ms. Holly Enriquez. Ms. Enriquez? The rules of decorum.
Holly Enriquez, 15353 Verdura Avenue. So yeah, I have some comments about some of the rules of decorum. And given that, as one of the residents just mentioned, the importance of having community input during public comment and also during the city council. And actually recently, Mr. Kevin Chun at the subcommittee reemphasized the point that for some of the new changes with zoning, the only way the city would really be alerted is if a community member either went to the city or basically came to city council. So it really emphasizes the point, the importance of having time for the community members to speak. So with that, one of my comments and recommendations is referring to page 5 of the Rules of Decorum, and it would be 3B. And this was already discussed. It basically was not considering the comments after a certain agenda item. So basically you weren't going to accept the cards after a certain period, whereas right now the cards are being accepted openly. I think that I understand the concern of the mayor that we might just get numerous amounts of comments, but it's not always that case. And for me, if you make a set rule that you can't allow people to give their cards after, let's say, the public comment has already started. Let's say there were only a few people. Let's say there were only 5. I mean, I don't see the point of limiting or setting a time frame when people have to turn in their cards and to be able to accept them, rather than making it so closed and say the agenda, the comment period on the agenda will not. I don't know why I can't say may consider, or keep it a little bit more open depending on the situation, rather than making it so closed. So that was my comment for 3B on page 5. I also have a comment on page 6, and that's on E. And for clarification, I think it would be beneficial. The Brown Act does allow public comment. It is protected The act does protect criticisms of programs, policies, and officials of state body. With that said, I think there needs to be a more specific wording and definition for personal attacks. I know that the counsel, the lawyer, has already changed the word impertinent and has suggested that that get removed. But my suggestion is maybe a very clear definition of what personal attacks mean, because each person has a different understanding of what a personal attack is. And because the Brown Act does allow for the community to give their opinion, like I said, criticisms of programs, policies, and officials are protected by the Brown Act. I just want to make it clear what exactly the city of Paramount is basically trying to not allow on E on page 6. And my last one is H, page 7. There's a prohibition of the public to request city resources. So for that one, again, I don't know really, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me how the city can specifically tell a resident or person speaking that they could not ask a specific question. In my head, it would make sense that they can ask and the city at the moment can deny and say, no, you're not allowed. But to specifically say that a person cannot request it, I think, again, it would be beneficial for the community if maybe it was more open-ended and it said, maybe without prior notification, the person couldn't ask for resources to share information, but to say just blanketly that they cannot ask for resources to share their information with the city seems very closed and very kind of preventing the community from communicating their concerns to the city. So with that, those are my main issues. But overall, because there seems to be this issue with time, allocating time for the community to speak during city council, I'm wondering maybe there needs to be also then a limit for the invocation. I see that it is one of the items that in the rules of decorum it has been set up on C, page 10, JC. The invocation does have a time set up. Maybe there needs to be a time set up for how long the invocation is, and that way people are still allowed a sufficient amount of time. Because if we're cutting into their time, like 5 minutes to 3, maybe there needs to be also a limit on the invocation as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That were the two speakers on that item.
There is one more,
Yeah.
Mr. Gene Daniels.
Madam Mayor, City Council, I just have a comment to make. I support this item, but more and more I got to thinking about it. I am saddened and embarrassed that after 60 years in the city of Paramount, we had to come up with rules under decorum to tell adult men and women how to conduct themselves in public and at public meetings. It's almost amusing that you have to tell adult people to how to act. And that's what I said. And may God have mercy on the city of Paramount. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Is that it? Okay, John, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and members of the City Council. As you recall, last meeting, we went through the bulk of these draft rules of decorum and procedures. And initially, I made some suggestions, make some changes, which I thought were warranted from a legal standpoint. I went through all my changes, and you all agree with my changes. Now, they're not in the package I have right now because they haven't been finalized, but I have all those changes here, so if you decide to approve this tonight, those changes will be incorporated into the final document. So, and I appreciate you granting my request to make those changes. I think they are important. After we went through that, then we went through some of each part of the rules of decorum, which the council had maybe issues with or comments to, and we went through a number of them in which there was a consensus that was made to approve either the language or to change it. And now we have just a few outstanding issues that I wanted to bring to your attention so that you can make a decision how you want to go about either approving the draft that's presented or making changes. Now, one of the things that we did make a change about that I have to make a change was on C5, which talked about the use of cellular phones and other electronic.
Can you be more specific where you are at?
I'm sorry, let's see. On page 2, Madam Mayor,
Okay,
it's C5, the use of cellular phones for texting, calling, internet, or social media.
right.
We wanted to change some of that. I know Councilmember Guillen made some good points regarding the use of these devices for reading a speech or making reference to notes they have on their either laptop and computer. So I just want to confirm that I'm going to make those changes in this one so that it does authorize you to utilize your cell phone or your electronic device for reading text or notes that you may have that you want to bring up for references that are on the agenda. So if that's okay, I'm going to do that.
I had in my notes here too that we were going to add or receiving calls and that they would need to leave the dais. Do you have
Yes,
that
and
your
that's in
notes?
there. I made a note for myself to put that in there too.
Okay, yeah, that's what I have too, note-wise.
Right. But we want to add the language about not prohibiting the ability for you to consult your computer or laptop for notes or speeches. So, and I think that's
what I have,
that's
notes
a
or reading
valid.
speeches, yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
The next item that needs to be addressed is, let's see, on page 7. It's F3I, and it's the little I on page 7 regarding the issue of there's a prohibition in this paragraph, no member of the public may cede his or her time to speak to another. That's where you have public comment, and maybe a speaker wants to cede their time to another person. And so we basically had initially that a member of the public couldn't do that because everybody needs the opportunity to speak. That was something that you discussed. You didn't come to a conclusion on that. And so that item needs to be addressed at this point and get some type of consensus on how you would want to do that. Now, since that time, I've kind of looked around in other cities, and there's pros and cons on this. Some cities do what this is proposing, that no speaker can cede their time because everybody should have the opportunity to speak. But we also know that sometimes a speaker wants to be able to do that, to get their point across. They may not be able to articulate it. Some cities, basically, what they do, they'll have a maximum number of people that can cede their time. So like maybe 2 or 3 maximum. And that way you don't have everybody ceding their time, but you can have maybe 1, 2, or 3. So that's just a suggestion I throw out to you, if that's something you're interested in, rather than a total prohibition.
Well, it was my, I'm sorry. It was my understanding at the last meeting that we were going to take that language out because you said what you just commented on, that somebody may need somebody to speak for them. And it was me that had the issue with how many people could we pass it on to.
Right.
So I'll leave it open for discussion to the council, but I would just say I'm willing to remove my, my reasoning against that. I feel like we can see how that goes, and if anybody seems to abuse it, then we can bring it back and rediscuss it. Any other comments? Okay.
I would think twice would be good enough.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, I don't have a problem either way. I was the one that had the issue with putting a limit of how many you could secede to, but I don't have that issue anymore. I think we can see how it flows, but if you want to put that limit on it, I'm okay.
Yeah, we can go either way. We can come back to it, that's
Yeah,
fine too.
and we'll just see that it doesn't get abused, and if it doesn't, then we should be fine.
Just leave it as is.
Okay, I'm hearing, is there a consensus from the council that the sentence which says no member of the public may cede his or her time to speak be deleted in its entirety? Is that correct?
Right?
That's correct.
Is everybody okay with that?
Nobody in dissent? That's correct. You have
Okay, that will be
consensus.
then deleted.
John?
Yes.
If I may, on that same paragraph on page 5, 3B, we were in the middle of my discussion on some of these bullet points when we had to stop the meeting. And so I just wanted to, since we're on 3B right now, and we're taking that part out, which I think is great. And then Holly Enriquez just talked about the speaker request submitted after calling to public comments on the agenda, which I had mentioned that day as well. So can we get a consensus on the second part of that paragraph to see if perhaps we can be in agreement on that whole paragraph?
We're talking on I on page 7. That's where the secede is. Where are you at on G?
Okay, I thought we were there.
Okay, we
I
have
thought we were already
consensus on
there.
I. Now, Councilmember Gillen is on page 5, item B. Correct?
Okay, I
We were
thought we
page
were
7.
done with the consensus already on the
Okay.
other portion. Go ahead. I'll bring it up after.
Okay, we have consensus for I.
We have a consensus for I. We'll
right.
we'll take
Now we'll
that out.
move to
Councilmember Gein, did you want to bring up your concern after?
Okay, so on page 5B, and I don't, because I hadn't finished, John, the last meeting, I didn't know, they're exactly the same as Holly's.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want me to just, in addition, to get a consensus now to see if on 5.3B, the public comment period, I think I had mentioned that, working class people, hard to get here on a meeting on time. I just thought it was a little restrictive to, say that part of the city council meeting is to have dialogue. And so as dialogue progresses, if a person then has a question, they could submit a card. I mean, I would think that was the purpose of public comments on certain things. So to be so restrictive, it would be restricting during the city council meeting when dialogue comes up to a certain issue that a person could not then fill out a yellow card. And so that's pretty restrictive. So I'm thinking, let's meet somewhere in the middle. And if the consensus is to restrict after the agenda gets started, and I'm saying working class people, let's meet somewhere in the middle and say maybe 15 minutes into the city council meeting, if they're not turned in. I'm willing to compromise here, but I'm just thinking that the way it's written is a little too restrictive.
No, Madam Mayor, I just want to address that, and Councilmember Gein didn't bring up that point, but in the minutes, you did vote on that.
We did.
And elected to keep it in. Now, if you want to revisit this right now, you can do so, but the minutes that I'm looking at, that had a motion to keep that in and it was passed.
Right, but Holly
One.
just spoke on it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you wish to
So I wanted to
revisit it, you can.
re-entertain it.
Okay, so we're on that item, and I do remember Councilmember Gann's comments. Mine were that in all of the ones that I reviewed, it was always, soon as the meeting was called to order, so we went ahead and said we would wait until after roll call was taken. That way we had to go through call to order, pledge of allegiance, invocation, and roll call to allow that extra time. And I'm comfortable with that as it's written because it allows those extra minutes. So,
Yeah, I'm comfortable.
anybody
as well.
else? We have Councilmember Gann's comments, anybody else? So,
No, I have nothing.
okay, so let's do a roll call vote on this
Yes, I would
item,
recommend that.
okay?
Councilmember Hanson?
Yes?
Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Gian?
No.
Vice Mayor Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. That clears that up. The last item that was beginning to be discussed, but we had to adjourn the meeting for the emergency situation, was on page 11. And that was section K.
Section what?
Section K, as in king, on page 11 of 13. And this had to do with placement of items on city council meeting agenda. There was some preliminary discussion by some of you about how you would like to maybe have this changed, but you never got into a full discussion on whether or not you wanted to change what was submitted or make some different amendments to it. So that's the last thing that we're dealing with before we submit this for a final vote.
Okay, if this is the one about placing items on the agenda, the last thing that I remember was Councilmember Gann was talking about it, and she wanted to advocate that also the mayor could put things on the agenda, and I made the comment that I was not in favor of that the mayor didn't have any more authority than anybody else, and they should have to get the 2 votes like everybody else. And I think that's when we came to a halt. So we'll open that back up for discussion if anybody has any comments.
And Madam Mayor, if I could, let me just kind of summarize what it says right now so
Please.
that you can, basically, the way it reads, and this is pretty much typical, that agenda items are really set by the city manager. However, there's the opportunity during council comments, which are on your agenda, that a council member may make a motion to request an item placed in the future agenda, and that requires a majority vote of the council. That's pretty much what the practice is today, but usually it's the city manager that sets that. And then we had a situation which comes up sometimes where a council member wishes to place something in agenda outside the meeting. And what we have here is that communication is directed to the city manager, who will then seek a majority consensus from the council before putting it on the agenda. I do want to emphasize that under those circumstances where if a council member asks the city manager, I'd like to put this on the agenda, the city manager's contacting the majority of the other members on this item is not a Brown Act violation, because it's not discussing a decision, it's talking about the agenda, and that happens frequently. So I wanted to make sure that you're comfortable with that. That's not the issue. So that's how it's prepared right now, Madam Mayor and Council. If you want to make changes to it, you can.
Are there any proposed
I don't
changes?
think there need to be
No.
any changes to it.
Okay, so let's do a roll call vote to approve it as is with a yes or a no. Lana?
Councilmember Hanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Gian?
No.
Vice Mayor Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That is the only issue that was left for discussion of the council. The rest of them were my changes that you all agreed to, and the ones that you just covered tonight.
Okay, and you were still going through the agenda at
Correct.
the time. Yeah,
Right.
so go ahead and pick up.
Okay, thank you. So back to page 7H. So my whole issue with the things that I have brought up are about First Amendment. And so when we talk about 7H, bringing forms of electronic media, as Holly mentioned, if I have a photo that I want to present on a screen so the audience can see, or a computer stick that I want a flash drive that I want to put in to show something, that's the way I'm trying to express what I feel, what I'm thinking, what I'd like to see change. And so by limiting, and it says if we could put it in, like Holly mentioned, with prior approval, so that there's nothing obscene that pops up or anything like that. If we could put with prior approval, I don't see why we need to censor what somebody's trying to express, because everybody has that First Amendment right of freedom of expression, and if they can do it best with a photo, with something on a flash drive, and we have prior approval, I don't really see an issue.
I think and correct me if I'm wrong here, but part of the purpose in this would be, so that it looks like a compromise might be possible here, is that you don't want somebody coming up that day, having stuff, and then we have to mess around figuring out how to get it up on the
Yes.
screen, what it is to it. So if they come ahead of time and present it to staff and say, I'm gonna speak at the city council member meeting, I'd like to use this as a presentation, and can get approval, I would not have a problem with that. I think it's a matter, the whole reason that it was in there is we've had people come up before and say, here I have a disc, here I have a flash drive where you put it in, and that's just it. We don't want to be in the middle of public comments and trying to do some kind of electronic setup.
I agree with
Is
you,
that the
Madam Mayor, but I
spirit
do
of it?
have some concerns, just legal concerns,
Yeah.
if you will. And I think conceptually, what Councilmember Guillen's proposing, on its face is innocuous. However, what I can see is that once you open the door up by saying, okay, you're not going to do this unless you have prior approval from the city. Now it puts the city in a position of deciding whether or not something is going to be utilized to present to you. Let's say that, and I'll give you an example, worst case scenario. Let's say someone wants to put some data up there and says, and I want this data to show the city council about something. And it's found by the city by city staff that, well, the data is not exactly accurate, okay? And they say, it's not accurate, we're not gonna let you do that. Now you're gonna be put in a position where the staff is gonna be attacked by saying, you're not letting me present my freedom of speech by putting up information because you're making an arbitrary decision on whether it's true or not. That's my only concern, Madam Mayor, is that you can get in those situations where it puts the city in a position of being arbitrary, if you will, which there could be, where the cities are. We don't want to see that, okay? Whether it's accurate or not, it becomes a burden on the city to decide whether or not they're going to approve it. So that's just something I want to, bring and present to you, that could be an issue where if you just have a straight prohibition, you're not getting anybody the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, but you're also from the get-go violating, or trying to hinder somebody's First Amendment right from the get-go, as opposed to giving at least the appearance or the good faith effort to say that, you know what, that picture has a lot to add to what they're talking about. If we based it on your opinion right now, if this happens, if that happens, the sky could fall tomorrow. That could happen too.
Yeah. And
So I'm saying the prior approval, if it becomes an issue, then you restrict it at that point, as opposed to restricting it right off the paperwork here, right off the policy, in the initial stages, before you even have a chance to see if it could offer something. It's just seems that it's another attempt to silence the community from expressing themselves. It's a First Amendment right to use a photo, to use something that could enhance what they have to say. So to prohibit that from the very beginning, it's just wrong.
Now, does that, could you, this doesn't prohibit what we've always done in the past, does it? Which is people bring copies
Yes.
of what they want and distribute them to us and want us to be able to see them. We've even had people pass around, an iPad or a phone because they had it on there so that the information is there. So it doesn't prohibit the information from being disseminated, it prevents it electronically.
Correct.
Because I understand what you're saying, then you put the city in a place of censorship.
Yes.
And we don't want to go down that path and censor anybody.
Censoring them with this rule.
Well, no, they
And
can
you're
present
right.
the information, just
Present
not
stuff.
electronically.
And typically what
But that
we
may
do-
be the way they want to express themselves electronically.
Well,
We
there
live
are
in a world of
limits for
electronics
everything.
now, not old-fashioned newspapers. It's electronic, it's an electronic era, it's a form of
And they could show
expression.
it on their iPad or on their iPhone if
Why
that's the
can't
only
they
medium
use the
they
city
have it in.
resources? It's the city's facility, it belongs to the community.
Well, I
And
think
if they
that was-
want to use it with prior approval, it shouldn't be an issue.
Well, the concerns were explained and then you either agree or disagree with
Right.
them.
Yeah, I understand both points. I
Yeah.
understand everybody's point. This has happened in another jurisdiction, that's all, where information, it was a very controversial agenda item, and people were putting up information on, and data which was very inaccurate, but you were looking at it, and you didn't really have an opportunity to decide whether or not it was accurate or not. I think having prior approval certainly will help in that by giving it to staff beforehand, because like you said, Madam Mayor, under our current practice, people have to give their information ahead of time so that you can have it in your agenda. It's not just given to you right on the spot, because how can you actually look at anything? That's the way it's currently done. We could do the same thing electronically and say, okay, it's given to staff to look at first, but you have to understand that if there's something in that slide that's presented to everyone and it's inaccurate, the staff is going to tell the person, we're not going to be able to put that up because it's not accurate. Or it's depicting something that may not be appropriate as far as not speech-wise, but it may be something that violates another provision of the rule. That's all I'm saying.
Questions for John?
Have we had requests for that before?
Audience.
No, I mean, to put something on the screens or whatever.
As far as I can remember, looking at the staff, if they recall from the past 10 years or so, I don't believe there's anything. Can you guys remember? I can't remember off the top of my head.
We have had some occasions recently where there was somebody at the dais, not prior requests.
Correct, yeah.
But at the
I
dais
think-
and say, I have a
yes.
thumb drive here, or I have something, can you put it up on the screen?
Mhm.
And we've said, no, we don't do that, because like I said, you can't take and and do that all during public comments time. We've had it at that point.
But not prior.
Not to my
Yes,
knowledge, no.
Yes, that's right.
Madam Mayor, if I could just make a suggestion again. Again, both points are very valid. And if you want to have it without prior approval, we can see how this works. If we get, it becomes a chronic problem, then you can change it.
I think it has to be with prior
Yeah,
approval.
well, I
We
said
have to know
prior
so that
approval,
we're
too.
set up for it, so I think that that's
That
that's
certainly will
important.
help.
But I'm looking for your best opinion as our attorney, because I don't like when you said, now you're putting staff in a place of censorship. I'm not comfortable with that.
And that could have, I'll give you an example, okay? We had a situation where minutes were transcribed, and someone argued with the clerk that that's not what they said. And so it became a contest between the city clerk and the speaker who was recorded, saying that shouldn't be in the minutes. I didn't say that. And they're saying, well, you did say that. It's going to be, you're going to have similar issues here. That's all I'm saying. It may not be 100% of the time, but there could be times because agenda items can be very emotional, as you know, and someone wants to put something up there that beforehand staff's going to look at, and they're going to have to be put in the position to decide whether or not it goes. And if the person doesn't agree with staff, then they're going to come before you and say they're censoring me.
Let me ask you this, John, if you could do this, because I'm with you. I see both sides of it. What I'd like to do is to go ahead, this would be more discussion, this is just my opinion, and approve it as is, but I would like you to do some investigation and see if there's a way that we're protected in doing it the way that Councilmember Guillen is presenting it, that if they bring it to you prior approval and staff has say-so over the content or whether or not can be presented, you know, maybe there's like a notice they could sign or some kind of disclaimer. If there's any way legally that we can make that happen without making staff the censors, I would like to see us move forward with that. But I don't feel comfortable with the statement you made doing it at this point.
I could certainly do that, and given some time to think about it, I think maybe we come up with an amicable solution
That would be
for
great.
everyone. Like I said, I understand both points of view. I just have a concern we're in a position to be arbitrary about it. But if you want to approve this as presented, and I can come back, I can even come back at the next meeting if you want.
Yes,
And come
if you
back
can
with an
find
answer saying,
something
you know
that,
what, maybe we add this language
protects
so that everybody's comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And if I can, just say one thing to that, that's fine. I'd be happy with you doing the research, but in response to the analogy that you gave or the example, that was something that was said, which we didn't used to have being recorded, and then our city clerk paraphrasing, which is completely different now because we've actually moved up to an electronic era because we're being video recorded now. So that solves that. A photograph or something on a screen is completely different than what a person says, but it is an extension of the First Amendment.
And I agree, again, I think coming back with some language, because whether it's a photograph or something, in the age of Photoshop, you can make any photograph look like something.
Yeah, let's just see, I just want staff to be protected. If they're going to be making that call, they need to be protected.
That's my only concern.
Okay, so the motion's going to be to approve it as written, and then John will investigate and come back. Go ahead,
Mary Ann, I
Tom.
got one other question on that. You say prior approval, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever, but are we going to have some time involved? I mean, prior approval, is this going to be presented 15 minutes before a meeting or a day before or what?
I would like it at least a day before. That way, in case I need to consult with the city attorney on
Should
that.
that not be incorporated in there also?
I would say longer than that.
Longer than that.
Yeah, I really would, because
And I assumed you would work that if we're going to do it into
yeah,
the
that's something
language. That would be
that we would
common
have to
sense.
look
That
at.
way, we're going to have time.
It's going to put staff in a difficult position to evaluate a day before. Usually
Yeah, I
it's,
agree.
maybe a few days.
And it might be beneficial too to the person that's trying to present, because then they can go back and redo whatever they
Yeah.
have, change it, and that'll give
So
them.
that'll just be something you'll address when you look
Yes.
at the language and
Right.
see if it's even possible to do.
Okay.
So yes, a yes vote will move it ahead as written with John to investigate it, or of course you can vote no. Lana, roll call, please.
Councilmember Hanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes. It's back to you, Councilmember Gann.
I think I just reiterated what Holly came up, because those were on my initial request as well. That's all I have.
Okay. So we have all of the changes into discussion. Do you have anything else from us, John, at this time?
Yes, Madam Mayor, what we would be asking right now is for the council to make a motion to approve the draft rules of decorum procedures for the conduct of city council meetings as amended. And what we'll do is I'll come back with my research on it. We can make a change there, but you'll get a final draft with the changes you made to this point.
Okay.
Make a motion, we move the item.
Second?
Moved by Hoffmeyer, second by Hanson. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Gian?
No.
Vice Mayor Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to new business, installation of a disabled parking zone.
Yes, Madam Mayor, before we go on to that item, I'd like to just point out that we did receive a speaker's card, and if you'd like to take it, it's, we could take it at the beginning of the successor agency.
That's what we'll do.
Okay, you got it. Okay, so on to item number 8. This is our latest request for a handicap parking zone, and it comes from a resident living on Vermont Avenue. And Christopher Cash, our Public Works Director, will handle the item. Chris?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor, members of the council, we received a request for a disabled parking zone from Ms. Jo Arias at 15316 Vermont. The applicant has a disabled parking placard and is requesting the zone in front of her home due to limited neighborhood parking. Staff has inspected the site and found that on-street parking can be limited. The applicant's residence does have some off-street parking. However, the driveway is shared by multiple residences and is too narrow to have proper accessibility. Staff has also verified that there are no other handicap parking zones within the area. Come on. Danny, can you get that? Thank you. If approved, approximately 15 feet of curb will be marked for disabled parking only. At their September meeting, the Public Works Commission heard this item and recommended to the City Council approval. A notice indicating that both the Commission and the Council would hear this item was sent to the surrounding properties. That concludes my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Are there questions? Motion?
Make a
Motion
motion
to
to
approve.
approve.
Second.
Moved by Hanson, seconded by Hoffmeyer. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Gian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes. Item 9, award of contract.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council. This next item involves an award of contract for the repaving of Alondra Boulevard. It's taken us a few years to get to the our finish line for paving Alondra. We started out on our east city limit, which is our border with Bellflower, and over time worked our way west towards the LA River. We're now at the last leg of the project, and Chris Cash will handle this item. Chris?
Thanks, John. As John mentioned, we have been working on this for a couple of years now, and this evening we will be presenting bids to award the final portion of the project, which will be from Gundry to Hunsaker. On September 26th, bids were opened and 5 bids were received. The parent low bid was submitted by All American Asphalt in the amount of $877,725, which is $22,275 below budget. The high bid was in the amount of $1,065,758. So with that, we are recommending award. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff?
Who was the contractor before that did it from up to Gundry?
It was, I'm not exactly sure, but it probably was All American.
All American?
Yeah, they've been doing a lot of that.
Make motion to approve the item.
Second?
Moved by Hoffmeyer, seconded by Hanson. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Gian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Martinez? Mayor Lemons?
Yes. Okay, next we have a public hearing on the expenditure of funds from the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, this is something we've been doing every year for a little over a decade now. We receive federal dollars to spend for law enforcement purposes every year, and we're required by law to hold a public hearing to explain how we plan to use these dollars. And here's Adriana Lopez, our interim public safety director, to explain to us how this is going to happen. Adriana?
Thank you, John. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. For the past 21 years, the City of Paramount has received federal funding to supplement law enforcement via a combination of grants. The Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, or JAG, has been awarded to the City of Paramount for the last 11 years for a total amount of $387,490. The award total can vary from city to city and from year to year, and is determined by a formula that considers population, crime statistics, and state allocation. This year, the city's allocation is slightly over $19,000. There is no local match required, and the grant requires that the city develop a proposed use of the funding, to conduct a public hearing, to propose to discuss the proposed use of the funds, and to prepare quarterly and program reports. We are proposing to use these funds to conduct probation compliance checks, parole compliance checks, truancy sweeps, and curfew sweeps. It is recommended that the City Council conduct a public hearing and authorize the use of the grant funds to pay for the programs specified in this report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from anyone? Okay, this is a public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this item should come up at this time. Seeing no one, anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this item should come up at this time. Okay,
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second?
moved by Hoffmeyer, seconded by Hanson. We close public hearing. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Gian?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes. Motion on the item?
Make motion to approve?
Second?
Moved by Hoffmeyer, seconded by Hanson. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Gian?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes. Okay, we will move on to item 11, the proposed Veterans Appreciation Concept.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Council, this is an exciting one. Last year, as you know, we started a street banner program to honor those men and women from Paramount who are proudly serving in the military. This was a success, as we proudly hung over 30 banners on Paramount Boulevard. We now like to explore some ideas with you, honoring Paramount residents who are actually veterans. Dave Johnson assembled a subcommittee of Parks and Rec commissioners and came up with some concepts that he will now present to you. Dave?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor and City Council. So as John mentioned, Danny, can you go? There you go. Our current military banner program on Paramount Boulevard, our Boulevard of Heroes, only serves those residents who are currently serving. And we are still receiving applications throughout the year to put new banners up of members who are currently serving. When we first rolled this out, we did get phone calls from our residents who wanted to honor family members who previously served or residents themselves who had previously served, but this particular program did not accommodate that. The other program that we run to honor our veterans is done with the Elks Lodge. It helps us with the Memorial Day event, and obviously that's held on Memorial Day every year. So, as John mentioned, we did form a temporary subcommittee with our Parks and Rec Commission consisting of Margaret Mondragon and Vilma Stallings. And we did sit down and we kind of brainstormed some ideas. We were also contacted by our local American Legion post, and we were able to meet with them as well. And from that, we did develop a list of concepts to recognize our veterans. And the Parks and Recreation Commission at their last meeting approved this list for review by the City Council. Next slide. Sorry. Oh, it is there. I should pay attention. The proposals we came up with are Veterans Day event. So we currently have the Memorial Day event, so we could do a Veterans Day event. We would, again, like the Memorial Day event, we would look to a service club to assist with that and put that event on for our veterans. Stories of veterans on our social media. So a lot of our community has some very interesting stories about family members and their service to our country. This would be something that we could actually put information out there to see, have them provide that information to us. We would solicit it, and then we would find the interesting stories that we can put on our social media posts. We could also take some of those stories, we could also do pictures and put that in the monthly Pulse Beat. It would be appropriate possibly to do that in November and May issues, as that would be the months of Veterans Day and Memorial Day. And I personally have seen a lot of local stores throughout the Southland where they actually have walls of photos that people have submitted from that community to put up on the wall of the store, showing that their loved one, their family member who's currently or previously served in the military. So stores like Walmart, Northgate, we could approach to see if they would like to participate in something like that. And we've also seen this in various places, exclusive parking spots. It would say veteran parking only. You could do that at our city parks. You could also do that at commercial developments with the permission, obviously, of the owners. Next slide. We could also approach our local community businesses to see if there's discounts that we can provide to Paramount veterans. Every veteran has a military ID card that they could show, and they could get discounts. I'm a participant in that with my wife. Every time we go someplace, I try to use that discount. And then city programming. We have various programs in the city that we could offer discounts to our residents. In my case, day camp. If they have a child or grandchild that can participate in day camp, and we can give them a discount for that. Swim lessons, programs like that we could offer some kind of discount to our residents. In terms of the budget, so in developing these concepts, we were looking for ideas that would not present themselves as a large ongoing cost to the city. And some of these ideas are obviously dependent on the assistance from local businesses and service clubs. But there probably will be some small startup costs. I mean, as an example, if we were able to do the veteran parking signs, we'd certainly have to purchase those signs. So if whatever council approves tonight in terms of which concepts you want to move forward with, we will come back at mid-year budget and present a small budget to accommodate the moving forward with these ideas. And we would, again, present that at our mid-year budget proposal. Next slide. Oh, there you go. He's good. In addition to the proposed concepts, our finance director, Karina Lamb, has been able to secure our participation with SIACA to participate in their Pet for Troops program. This program allows a resident veteran to adopt an animal from SIACA shelter for no cost. The adoption cost, which includes the vaccinations, the spay and neutering of the animal, is approximately $100. SIACA will discount those fees by 1/2, and then the city will cover the other half of the cost. Thus, the veteran will have no cost at all. We are recommending, however, that we put that program cap at about $1,000 to allow, put some control on it. So that would allow, at this point, 10 veterans to adopt an animal for free. And next slide. That would conclude my presentation. We are asking that the City Council approve and modify the proposed Veterans Appreciation Concepts, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, David. Are there questions?
Yeah,
Right ahead.
please, if I may.
Yes, sir.
The Veterans Day event, do we have any ideas as of what would take place then, as of yet?
We did not
You didn't
flesh it
go
out that far yet.
Okay. Second question, the parking spaces, if it says, veteran parking only, and somebody parks there, and, how are you gonna police that?
It would not be policeable. It would be based on the honor and goodwill of people.
Okay.
Which we all believe in.
That's what I was hoping.
Apparently not, because you don't trust them to put something on their flash drive.
Can I
It
just
can be
ask-
symbolic as well.
I know that program, I think, exists in Downey already.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that how they do it? Is it an honor system?
I'm not totally familiar if Downey has that specific proposal.
They do.
They
They
do? I
have
can check.
parking for veterans, yeah.
I can ask them how they do
Yeah,
it.
so maybe we can find out if there's anything more, or if it's just the honor system there
Honor
too.
system.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, if I may too, just add, and I think Dave mentioned this too, again, these are just concepts, so what we plan to do, if you like these, we'll then go and delve a little deeper into them, see what costs are associated with them. If there are some that are no to low cost, we'll implement those immediately. If there are some with cost, then we'll obviously come back to the council for approval, more details to follow on this.
You may get a free parking space.
free park.
I'm in favor of anything for the veterans.
Is
Go
that
ahead.
going to start with probably Memorial Day next year? Because Veterans Day, it's way too soon now, this year.
Well, yes.
Are you gonna have
Memorial
anything
Day is
planned
already
for
set
this?
because the Elks provide that every year. But yeah, we would be aiming for Veterans Day 2018.
Have a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Moved by Hanson, seconded by Hoffmeyer. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hanson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Gian,
Yes.
Mayor Lemon.
Yes. Okay, we're going to move to committee reports. Any committee reports from council members?
Yes, Mayor, I have one. At the subcommittee meeting that we've been holding for the last 8 or 9 months, we're getting close now to having a regular zoning code amendment ready to go to the city council. And we thought we had it done last month, but we had some changes, so we are going to go back again one more time and make the changes, and then we will bring this to the city council.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffmeyer.
I also, yeah, I have one if I may.
Mosquitoes?
Mosquitoes, yes. Couple of things. Actually, I was going to give this last meeting, but we had to adjourn early. So this is from last month, actually, and next week we'll get another report. But just to quote a couple of things, this is for August now. The mosquito abundance in August remained above the 5-year average for the month. Within the greater Los Angeles County Vector Control District boundaries, which is pretty big, West Nile virus was detected in 234 mosquito samples and 22 dead birds. Los Angeles County Department of Health reported a total, a lot of people don't hear about this, but there were 46 human West Nile cases. 25 of those fell within our district, which, like I say, is a large district. On another note, too, the district's foundation, which is a kind of a charitable foundation within the district, we've purchased a new bug bus, and we got a tour of it on our meeting last month, and it's very impressive. And they've changed the name. It's not the bug bus any longer. It's now the mosquito SWAT bus, to maybe go along with the sheriff's department and police department. I don't know on that one, but it's pretty impressive. And they take these out to this bus out to school. It's a motorhome, converted motorhome. They take it out, and there's a lot of really high-tech things in it now. And it's all wrapped and everything, and it's got mosquito SWAT bus on the side and so on and so forth. But they even have some 3D screens inside the thing. They have a screen outside the thing. So it's pretty interesting. I don't know if we have it scheduled in any schools to come to Paramount this year, but I know they're filling up, and they hope to have it ready to start probably by the end of this month with everything they're going to put in it. So it's pretty impressive. If you ever get a chance to go see it, try to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, just one thing. I just like to say, since I've gotten elected, there's been a lot of talk about division, either from the pastors that get up here or a pamphlet that went out in the mail. And I just think in light of everything that has happened, I think it's about time, and it's a shame that we have to talk about it. I think it's about time that we focus on the positive things that we've done and all the positive changes that we made and the direction that we're taking, as opposed to keep focusing on the division within the city, because democracy is a division, and I think we're all on the same page. We want a better, a safe, a healthy place to live. And that's what we should be focusing on, as opposed to spending thousands of dollars on a pamphlet to talk about power. That's not Christian. And division, that's not Christian. So if we're going to claim Christianity, then let's set the example. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to staff comments.
Yes, Madam Mayor, we do have a new employee, a new full-time employee I'd like to introduce to the city council and the public. Her name is Elizabeth Popescu. Elizabeth, why don't you stand up? She's in the back. Elizabeth is our new HR manager, and Elizabeth is a graduate of Cal State Long Beach. She has 15 years of public sector experience, mostly in HR. She worked for the cities of Whittier, Bell Gardens, Norwalk, and now she works for the city of Paramount. So welcome, Elizabeth.
Welcome, Elizabeth. Are there any comments from council members? Okay, so we will recess to the successor agency and call it to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hanson?
We're here.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
What the Madam Mayor is basically, we're recessing we're not adjourning city council meeting because we're going to have a closed session. So she's recessing to
So I
the
recess
agency,
it,
which
so
is
we go
fine.
straight into
Yes.
successor. Roll call.
Can I continue with Councilmember Gian?
Here.
Mayor Lemons?
Here. Is that everybody? Did you finish? Okay. Public comment.
Yes, ma'am. We do have one from Mr. Jose De Leon. Would like to speak about freedom. Mr. De Leon?
Hello. Good evening to all of you, to the public. I don't know if you realize that we are in the 21st century. which means we gotta move forward, no back. With the restriction that you are planning to implement, you are violating our rights. It's in the First Amendment. Freedom of speech. By limiting the time to 3 minutes, because sometimes we need more time. And adding some more restriction. In the last city council meeting, I tried to get the information about this proposition, but it wasn't in the agenda. It just said that this proposition was gonna come. So my question is, how I can find, like, I know you guys put the agenda, but I don't see, like the details on each number or proposition. And I understand, Paramount, our city, has been relying on, we can say, oh, we kept Paramount great again by relying on metal business. It's understandable. But going back to those rules, those rules are from the 1800s, the one that you are trying to implement. We live in a democratic system, and we are in the 21st century. I don't know, what are you guys thinking? I wasn't wrong when I mentioned to you guys about dictatorship. That's how a dictator system starts, by regulating people's freedom. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we will move to were there any other speakers?
No, ma'am.
Okay, we'll move to the consent calendar.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Hanson, seconded by Hoffmeyer. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Gian?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes. And we'll adjourn the successor agency and reconvene the city council meeting, and we'll be going into closed session for conference with legal counsel on existing litigation.